Hello, hello. Oh, it looks like my microphone is working this time. Now, if people find me, hello, hi, everyone. We are here talking about PatternCon, which is the convention I am actively working on that celebrates and talks about. Yay, Linda, I see that it's working now. I have no idea why it wasn't working before. Maybe because I started with my yay, you can hear me and you found me. Yay. So my name is Trisha, owner of Creative Costume Academy. And hopefully we are creating the first, best, and most wonderful pattern convention to exist. And we started a previous live, but nobody could hear me. And I don't know why. I didn't change anything. I set it up exactly the same. So now whoever is going to the link that I put is going to go to the one where you can't hear me. So hopefully they can find me. But I've got a few who are here. If you guys could do me a big favor and give me a thumbs up. Yeah, technology. It's amazing when it works. Super frustrating when it doesn't. But we just roll with it because that's how it goes. So I'm glad you guys are hanging in and that you're here. We started this conversation last weekend, and actually I didn't send an email today. Good point, Linda. These have kind of been a little bit impromptu. Usually I send an email when we're going to go live on YouTube, and this is kind of a new thing with me going live and talking about PatternCon. I do want to make it a regular thing until PatternCon is here, like giving updates and whatnot. I want to bring on guests, like possible people who are going to be helping me put this together and teaching. But I didn't. This month is kind of just, I wanted to just start. I just wanted to start. So I didn't get it together enough to send an email out, which I usually do when I go live. So those of you who are here, you get first dibs on what we're talking about. You guys are the tried and true, right? Anyway, what we're talking about is PatternCon. It doesn't exist yet, but it's on its way. I've talked a lot about this with my audience, both here. I did do last week, we started that conversation and had some really great ideas. And I'm writing them down because I am getting into the planning stages of this, like really and truly. We did a little test to gauge interest, on fitting and pattern making. And that went really well. We have the Fit-Tabulous Fit weekend retreat, which will be happening in February. And, we didn't know what to name it because nobody knew what PatternCon was. I hadn't been talking about it. This is something that has been near and dear to my heart for a few years now, a couple years. And it's still big, and I'm still not even sure where to get started, but I'm starting here with you. I have ideas of why it's important to me, what I want to do. I'll share that with you in a second. But ultimately, I want to hear from you what you would want to see at a pattern convention. We've got some things like we want to try to maybe also intermix virtual classes. But honestly, if you don't know me, I teach a lot virtually, which is amazing because then you can connect with people all over the world, and it is really nice. I have a private membership called the Pattern Place, and I'm the lead instructor for another a course called Pattern Making Academy with Mimi G. All of that is virtual. All of that is accessible anywhere. And then, I do virtual things all the time. I just did a Together We Stitch, which was hosted, a sewing expo hosted in Australia. And it's great to connect that way, but I really feel like there's a craving to meet in person. And I feel like it's a different dynamic. If you guys have been, frock tails have taken off. There's frock tails everywhere. And I say that because frock tails is at the top of my mind for this weekend in Charlotte, which is my local frock tails. And I'm so excited that they did that because honestly, as a step towards PatternCon, we were talking about incorporating or like hosting a Frock Tales. I was talking about it with Brooks and Camper because she was really excited when I mentioned PatternCon, and we were like, maybe we can do an event to kind of lead up to it, like a Frock Tales or something. And then we heard that the lovely ladies that are throwing the Charlotte Frock Tales put that together, and I'm like, wow, well, they're doing that. And then I put together the retreat and it went really well. So, but I love the Frock Tales. And if you've been to one, you know how magic it is when we all come together and we're all wearing things that we've made and we get to connect with people who get it and like all of that. So doing things in person, I think, is really missed. And there are some sewing conventions out there. Heck, I'm teaching at the International Quilt Fest in Houston at the end of the month, and I'm super excited to go. I taught at Sew Expo in Puyallup, Washington earlier this year in February. And I'm really loving those conventions. The thing with those conventions is they're really more geared. Obviously, Quilt Fest is more geared towards quilting and not so much garment sewing and sewing in general. Whereas I really focus mostly on yay sound. You found us again, Sue. I have no idea what was happening. Honestly, like I was clicking things. It said I had sound. It said I was connected, but I started that live with my AirPods on, and maybe it just didn't like that I switched the sound. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm here now. I'm glad you guys found me again. So my idea with PatternCon is I mainly teach pattern making because pattern making is a niche thing to sewing. I feel like it's gotten a bad reputation over the years. Hey, Karen, you found us too. People, if you guys, I call myself your pattern nerd friend because I'm obsessed with pattern making. I myself have loved it for as long as I've discovered it, and I like to share it with others. But what I find is that people are afraid of it. They're intimidated by it. They've tried it before. It didn't work for them. So, and the way that I teach is very different than it's traditionally taught. And a lot of people find it that it's a lot easier to learn, which makes me happy because I want everyone to know pattern making. I feel like it's such a powerful tool for fitting, for designing new things, for just being able to make anything that's possible. So I wanted to bring a bunch of classes together. Also just like learning new techniques. I mean, there's so many different facets under the umbrella of pattern making. I was here before and thought no sound was me. I know everybody thought it was them. You guys are so awesome. I need to remember to always check that because I was blabbing away and then I started noticing that people were saying that they couldn't hear me. Ugh, so frustrating, but we're here now and we're hanging out. And so that is the original idea for PatternCon for me. This is my brainchild. And every time I've talked with like possible people, like I've talked with Jennifer Stern about it, and we connected. I told her that's why I was going to the ASG conference that we met at, I'm honestly Sew Expo and Quilt Fest. Part of going to these conventions and teaching at these conventions is to see how they do it. I've never put together a convention before. I don't know how they operate. Quilt Fest will be different from Sew Expo, and Sew Expo was different from the ASG conference I went to. So I want to take what I can from each of those conventions, put, our spin on it as far as focusing on pattern making. But also sewing will be involved. Of course, it's all part of the same world. Fitting, I think, is also really important as well, and focusing more on that and putting, our own spin on it and making it really something that you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go. It's the best thing ever because I'm a pattern nerd too. And I want to hang out with other pattern nerds and learn more stuff. So that's where it all comes about. And then the ultimate thing for me, I know I mentioned this last week, is, I grew up, for those of you guys who don't know, like my knowledge and where I really honed my skills and sharpened my skills is working on big theatrical productions, making costumes. So, which is a very different way from home sewing, and it's a very different way from fashion. So, but in that, everybody knows the actors on stage. I can't even tell you the amount of times when I've told people what I do and they say, oh, that's what you do now. But like, eventually you want to be on stage, right? And I'm like, no, I have no desire to be on stage. It's just we're so either people don't even know we exist, or they just think that it's like a step to trying to be the star on stage, and that is not at all. We're invisible people that make the show happen, and it's a thankless job. It really is. And but you have to, in order to make these outrageous costumes, for like Lion King is a show that I've worked on. Jersey Boys is a show that I've worked on. I've worked on water shows where there was 1.1 million gallons of water in a pool, and we had performers flying, literally flying feet into the air, and they had to be comfortable and look like in these crazy characters and stuff. And there is a vision, the director has a vision, and there's a designer who has a vision, but then there is the people who actually make it a reality. And that first person from the design before it can be sewn has to be your pattern maker. And it's such a pivotal role, a key role to creating things that don't exist. Same thing in fashion. The designers' names, Karl Lagerfeld, Yves Saint Laurent, Christian Dior, Christian Serrano actually does make his own stuff, but those people's names, but I guarantee you they have a team of people, pattern makers and stitchers, who make their dreams come to life, right? And I guarantee that they have a close relationship with that designer. That designer is like, this is my person. This is my pattern maker who gets me, who understands the design and the vision that I'm trying to create and can make it into a real thing. And there are a few of those designers who will do a lot of their work, but a lot of them, they don't. And again, it's a thankless, it's like people don't really understand that position exists. and the thing for me that's sad is that those creations wouldn't exist without that position. So I really feel like it is my role to celebrate pattern making, to celebrate the skill, to bring awareness to how freaking awesome it is and how powerful it is, whether you're going to use it in your own business, whether you're going to use it just to build your own wardrobe, to make things fit better, or whether you have aspirations to going into one of these bigger roles. I think that it deserves to be celebrated. And it's not even, people don't even know about it. It's like this invisible thing. So for me, I want to say secondary, but it's not even secondary. It's almost top of the list. Just from personal interactions with people, my life experience. And I just feel like, I don't know why I have this pull to create this space to share this love. Hey, Charlotta is here too. Awesome. Charlotta and I have talked about this a lot, and I want to get Charlotta on a specific, we will have a live next week, right? Yeah, Charlotta and I will be talking about stuff next week on her channel. So do go and give Charlotta a follow. But I want to bring her in on this PatternCon chat because she's a fellow pattern nerd as well. And I want to get every angle and make sure that we make this an event that everybody cannot resist, right? That everybody is going to be excited about, that it's going to address things that you think are really awesome, that would be helpful in your world, and things like that. So it's not just about me and my vision. And of course, it started with me and my vision, but it's going to take a team of people. It's not just going to be me. And I want to hear from you what you would like to see at PatternCon. So that's what these conversations are about. Sandra was saying, idea, using your personal block and an existing pattern as inspiration for style lines that would draft off of our personal block. That's a great idea, Sandra. So that is actually, when I talked about the course that I have with Mimi G, Pattern Making Academy, that's basically what we did in Pattern Making Academy. Is Mimi G would come to me with several designs, because we would batch film, pre-record, but she would come to me with a batch of designs, and then that's what I would do. Is in each of those classes I would say, okay, we're going to make this design, and we're going to take your sloper and create that design. So or your personal block. So that is a lot of fun, and honestly, that's what pattern making is. So I think some classes on that would be fabulous. That's a great idea. So that's what I'm here asking you, is what would be most helpful Like, are we talking fitting? Are we talking like this, like creating new designs? Or like in your case, Sandra, you're saying taking an existing pattern, because that's something that I always say. And I think the reason that Sandra's bringing that up, I'm trying to find a pen so I can make notes. I'm not quite prepared. I was dealing with taxes and bookkeeping before we jumped on. The life of an entrepreneur. And before that, I was filming Tricky Thursdays for next month. Trying to get ahead. I can't believe I don't have a pen. Let's see if this works. But what Sandra's referring to is, because I think there's a misconception with a sloper. If you're not sure what a sloper is, it's a base pattern template, or a personal block is a basic pattern, a basic block. And if you have that to fit, once you start with a pattern that is already fit to you, you can take that existing block and use simple pattern making principles to create a unique design. There is a misconception with slopers that once you have a sloper that's fit to you and you spend that time, that you can take that sloper and use it comparing to commercial patterns, purchase patterns, and solve all your fit issues on that commercial pattern using your sloper. And that's not exactly how a sloper is meant to be used. And it can give you some really good information. In fact, in my private membership, The Pattern Place, we have a whole class on how to use your personal sloper or your personal block to create or to work with sizing commercial patterns or patterns that you purchased, and several different ways of doing that. But what I say, I have a whole bunch of patterns because people love to give them to me. I love to collect them. And oftentimes they are not in my size. So it's going to take me a lot longer to make up that pattern and then fit it down to my size or fit it up to my size. Whereas if I took my sloper, a personal block, and use that pattern as inspiration, like I can now see the pieces that are meant to be used to create this design by seeing how they looked. Now I'm going to take my personal block and make those same pieces because I know my personal block fits me, and you're going to be more successful. So that's what I always suggest. And that's why Sandra's bringing that up. So that would be a great class. I love that idea. So that's what I'm here for. I want to open up this conversation. I want you to tell me what you think would be helpful. Like, so the retreat that we're doing, what I was saying, like this was me dipping my toe in the water, throwing it out there, seeing if there was interest, is actually we're coming together for 2 to 3 days, depending on the package that people sign up for, where we will have a sloper, a basic bodice and skirt pattern sewn up for each person coming. And myself and a really good friend of mine, actually my professor growing up where I learned pattern making from originally, are going to be doing the fitting for you. And for those who want to share, and will be open to doing a fitting in front of the others, otherwise you can do a private session, but we will be showing you in person. Again, that's what makes it so great, is to do it in person, like where I've learned a lot about virtual fittings, but to actually, for me to do a fitting is much quicker than for me to explain how you can do it virtually. So we are going to fit those slopers on our people that have signed up. And then we'll make those pattern adjustments so that by the end of the second day, you have a sloper that fits you perfectly, or, as close to perfectly as we can get in 2 days. But we're going to do the fitting for you. We're going to help you with the adjustments. You'll have a sloper to go home with that is your fit sloper. Day 3, we're going to take that sloper and we're going to make a dress design with that, using your sloper, so you know what to do with it. So there's a lot of people signed up for the day 3, and that's what we're doing. So if that's a kind of thing that you would be interested in, that sold out in 1 minute. We booked all of our spots. So it was very well loved. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I incorporate that into a convention? Because obviously that's one-on-one. So maybe doing a VIP option. The frock tails came up as a thing, networking, roundtables, like masterminding and intermingling with other people, vendors, having tools, zero waste patterns. What kind of classes would you be interested in taking? I personally love, like having displays or having, not not workshops, but like I always think of, if you guys haven't checked out World of Wearable Art, it's an event that happens every year. I think it's every year. It might be every 2 years down in New Zealand, and they do some crazy outrageous stuff with it's wearable art, right? Like I would love to have something like that. And there's this skirt that I just love. Like it looks like a regular skirt, and then she lifts it up. There's this ring that's like attached, and underneath it's all this honeycomb. Like that, what I don't know. I feel like pattern nerds who are really pattern nerds, you like dig the puzzle part of it, right? The challenge of figuring that out. And I think to have some classes or some displays where we're looking at that, where you can actually like see how it's broken down, I think would be very cool. But that's my thoughts, right? Like, do you want more fitting? Do you want more like drafting from your sloper? Do you want more, drafting from a draft? Do you want to learn cosplay stuff and like materials to do that? Getting patterns in an untraditional way, historical patterning, like these are kinds of things. And whenever I'm saying all this stuff, that everyone's like, yeah, I want all those things. But maybe there's things that I'm not thinking of. And like I said, we got some really good ideas last week. So I wanted to continue the conversation, keep it going. We also thought like, let's do maybe either a fashion show or like a Frocktails event, like a cocktail event where you wear something that you've made and everybody's mingling with wearing. I think that's a really great idea. I love that idea, because who doesn't love a party? And like if everybody's made their own thing, like that's just, I think it's been a really magical atmosphere for the 2 Frocktails that I've been to, and I'm looking forward to the one this weekend. So I would love to incorporate that as well if you guys think that would be fun. So that's what we're talking about. I'm going to write this down from Sandra, this idea. Personal block and draft and existing. And then I see another idea from Sandra. And Sandra actually has emailed me with some other ideas. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to leave the comment down below, because there were so many wonderful comments actually from last week. Like I didn't have a chance to get back to each and every one of them, but I read all of them and I think they're amazing. And so I'm loving this input. I'm loving that you guys are into it. So Sandra's other ideas is a large space room where we can sew with our own equipment and not in a class, like an open sew time. That would facilitate a low-key networking mingle time as well. So an open sew area. Like with tables, and we could, I think electricity would always be a thing, but that would be fun. Like, would you guys be into that? Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I know, Doreen, I get to meet you in person, give you a big, big hug. Another thing that came up, yes, and Charlotta's confirming that we will be live on Charlotta Pattern Cutting School next week. I don't know if we've quite come up with an idea, but like of what we're talking about. No, we did trousers last time, but we always come up with something that is a lot of fun. And then it's not just me. We have Charlotta as well and her dynamic. So an open sew, I like that idea. I see Linda threw out an idea too. That would be fun. Linda, where is it? I saw another idea. Yeah, Linda said, help with picking good pattern designs for the body shape and type. Yeah. Okay. Linda is a student of mine in my private membership. So we did have a class where we talked about design, dressing for your body type. And the great thing is, Erica Cartledge is the one who taught that class for us. She's an amazing stylist and shopper. It was wonderful. Yeah. And just really give you good ideas of how to proportion everything and for your size and shape that you are, and how to highlight the things you love and like where to draw the eye and thing like that. But she was excited to give that class to us because she doesn't sew. So she's always thinking about it from what exists out there in the world, or how you can work with things that you have in your wardrobe, which is fabulous. It's great. But with us having the superpower of being able to sew, and especially making our own patterns, like the world is endless. So picking your pattern, so like on what's out there, like what kind of silhouette would look good. Because sometimes, you see that lady or you see that person on the envelope and you go, gosh, that's a gorgeous dress or that's a gorgeous jacket, right? And then you make it up and it doesn't look the same on you because your body type is different. Like those are models that are on there, right? So yeah, I like that. Um, let's see, help picking. So because we have the live with Charlotta next week, for body type, I am going to pause our little live PatternCon chats. But what I want to do for starting maybe next month is Thursdays are usually tricky Thursdays in my world. So usually I post a video with a tip or trick here, on YouTube. So if you like learning about like quick tips and tricks that can help you in your sewing journey, please hit that subscribe button because that's what we share here. We talk about fitting, pattern making, sewing stuff, that just things I've learned in my experience. So that will pick back up again next. And then once a month we go live with Charlotte and we switch back and forth, whether it's my channel or hers. We are determined to figure out this year, gosh, this year's almost over, by next year, how we can both go live at both of our channels at the same time. Because right now we just flip back and forth so that each of our followers, so we encourage you to follow each of us. But anyway, so I want to continue Tricky Thursdays as Tricky Thursdays because I have people who look forward to those every week. But I want to do maybe once a month or twice a month, continuing this chat about PatternCon and bringing in people that I think would love to be involved, like Jennifer Stern, like Charlotta, like Brooks and Camper. There's a couple people that I've been chatting with, like Mela, my teacher, who's amazing, and does a lot of historical costume work. And she was very involved with, and has been very involved with Costume College, if you're aware of that convention, and why she's kind of like my head person that's helping me with the retreats and going into PatternCon. But I would love for her to come on and we can have a chat about what their thoughts are and what they think would be helpful, and then get the feedback from you if that's something that you think would be interested. I mean, like I said, this isn't only my idea. This is something that I want you guys to all be involved in as well and share what you think would be most helpful. Another thing that came up last week that I thought was really interesting, and I've been hearing a lot about this from followers, from fellow people in the industry, like in the teaching side, how do we use these skills for business? How, like, having that element involved as well, and having like a networking element as well. Like, is that something that a lot of people would be interested in? Like, how to use these skills for a sewing business, or to advance in a career, something like costume design or fashion. Like, what kinds of things, tips on that, classes on that, networking opportunities. I think that is a really, what's the word? Like, it's something that a lot of people are interested in, and not everybody is interested in sewing as a job. And I will tell you, as someone who has sewn as a job for most of my life, you guys, making costumes and working for shows is the only job I've ever had, other than being a coffee barista when I was in high school, or now, I'm a teacher. But that is it. It's always been my job. Sewing has always been my job, and it is a different thing than sewing for yourself. So it completely does not offend me and makes perfect sense if you're like, I want to keep this my hobby and something that I do for myself. It's different when you're sewing for other people. But those people who are sewing for other people, who do have the aspirations to advance in business in that way, even in my own journey, like when I have thought to get business help, I have a business coach. I belong to another like launching like marketing group for a while. I have entrepreneur friends, none of them sew. Like it's me introducing them to this sewing world. I mean, the amazing thing, Mimi G, we talked about her a little bit ago. She has that wonderful podcast, Business Shit, that everybody keeps asking for, because I think that is lacking, right? Like information on not just online business, or a lot of sewing business is in-person business, not just business, small business in general, but how to leverage it, or how to price things, or how to get customers. Another one, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name right now, and she's so lovely, and we talk all the time, but the bridal seamstress, she has a community that helps bridal seamstresses, people who do alterations for wedding and bridal. Like, I could talk to her and get her involved. We've talked about doing retreats and things like that together. So if that is of big interest, I think that is an element that would be really helpful, that is not widely out there, for the sewing community. If that is your interest, and I'm not saying that, to be interested in pattern making and sewing, that you have to go down that road. And I think that it would be, an offer that's available. But if that's something that people would find very helpful, I do feel like that's something that we don't have a lot of. Susan's saying yes. Linda's saying pricing is so difficult. Most people don't think about the time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see. Snoops, which is Sue, says, I think someone mentioned a challenge last week. I think that would be fun. Have one person start and someone else pick it up and finish it. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think we did talk about a challenge. And I think something was mentioned last week as well. Like, what if we did like a draping challenge? And I know, like, what if there was like a draping class, or we just, or only those people who kind of feel comfortable draping would enter this draping contest. I'm not a big draper, but I would do it. I think that would be fun. Like some kind of challenge for that. That was something that came up last week, where it's like, here's this thing. And we can do it in flat pattern as well. I'll tell you about something. Okay, so sorry. This is what happens. My brain gets so excited by all these ideas, and I love it. I love that you guys are here and bringing these wonderful ideas, because it helps me so much. And it's like, then it will be taking all these ideas and turning it into a tangible thing. Would love to watch the draping. Yeah, for sure. So I think that we could do a draping challenge. I love that idea of like, have one person start and pick it up and finish it. And Sue, you'll probably know this because I know you do some theater stuff, but like there are always, learning in theater, you are taking, like I grew up in high school, I was taking theater classes, and then that's when it switched, and why I wanted to be involved with theater, but didn't want to be on stage. But they have these like actor games that they play to like get you in the mood of being a character. And there's things like that where it's like, there's two people sitting, let's say in a bus station or on a plane, and one person comes in and they introduce their character and they ad lib, right? You're learning how to like build a character through how you're acting, and then one person leaves and another person comes, and it's a new character to interact with. So something like that is what that reminds me of, like having a challenge that someone starts and then you pass it out, because that it just like reminds me of those games, because they're creative, like how to pick up on someone else. That's a fun idea. One of my favorite, so Helen Joseph Armstrong, if you guys don't know, is this is a book that I highly recommend. This is an old copy, like the cover looks very different, like improv games, right? So Helen Joseph Armstrong is, I first started learning on this book. It makes sense to me. I've taken a lot of the way that she teaches, and I teach that. I know some people know this, but I had the great pleasure of, even after I had started learning with her book, I got to take a class from Helen Joseph Armstrong when I was going to LA Trade Tech for just one semester. And I got to take a class from her, and it was one of my favorite classes. That was probably my favorite class until I got introduced to Shingo Sato, which I think having Shingo Sato to transformational reconstruction would be an amazing class that I think would really, a lot of people really love. Very avant-garde, like fabric origami. But the class that I took with Helen Joseph Armstrong, whose line is it anyways? Yes, like that, like those games. right? Like doing a sewing version, a pattern making version of that, like a draping version. I don't know. It could be fun, right? Like the goal is to have fun and learn. And I think that these ideas are so great. And I'm trying to like wrap my brain around it. But the class that Helen Joseph Armstrong that I took from her was one of my favorites. And it forces you. And I think it's such a great learning opportunity for people wanting to learn about pattern making is we would come in and we would either have on a half scale model, like a finished garment, or she would draw a sketch, like a flat pattern sketch on a technical sketch on the chalkboard. And the class was you would come into this design and it would be something unique. It would be like a facing that was all in one. Like I'm trying to think back. Honestly, I can't even remember the designs that we did, but it was tricky. It wasn't like a basic bodice with darts moved here or there. It was a tricky design. And so what it forced you to do, and so she would say, okay, here's what I want. Here's the pattern I want you to create. And she wouldn't tell us how to do it. But we could, especially if it was a physical garment on the form, we could like look at it and turn it around and take what we had learned with pattern making and try to figure out how to make this pattern. And then the next time we would come to class, she would tell us how it was done. And part of our homework was not only to figure out the pattern, to do the pattern, what we thought it was, but to also sew a mock-up and see if it turned out the same. And it was really when you got to the sewing part, whether you knew you did it right or wrong, right? Like to know where your seams are placed, to know how the sewing order. And it was a tricky class, but I loved it because it really forced you to analyze what you're looking at, to pick it apart and really see what's going on. Like, where is that dart moved? What is the order of construction to achieve that thing? And sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong, but that would be kind of a fun, like maybe not something crazy hard, but like something like that, like to do a challenge like that might be kind of cool. So I love this, like thinking of fun little challenges, and maybe a draping challenge, and maybe like we have like 3 of them, like that people could be involved in, and see who gets it correct. Or like I was saying, I think last week where I was talking about my grandfather was an artist and he would go to different art shows and things, and they would have quick draw contests where you would have 3 minutes. There'd be a model sitting in the middle, and then there'd be a circle of artists, and you'd have 3 minutes to draw a sketch or draw a painting. And he won several of those. He was so quick with the way that he did that. But like doing something like that with pattern making or with draping could be really cool. Or repurposing or upcycling. Like, what about upcycling? I love that like movement, upcycling and hacking, which I feel like hacking, Dejanay over on, what's her, Deja made it, I think I'm trying to think of her handle, but she was so cute when the book came out that I helped Mimi G, Make It Yours, which is all about pattern hacking. I did all those figuring out of the patterns for her for that book. And Deja got the book and she did a lot of the samples out of that book. And she was saying that pattern hacking is like the gateway drug to pattern making. And I'm like, that is such a hilarious way of putting it, but it's so true. Right? Like pattern making really is pattern hacking. Like I didn't know there's a lot of terms that I learned because I learned in the theater, right? And I learned a little bit about fashion in school and then adapted it in the theater and learned more on the job, basically, than fashion or than the home sewing world. So when I came onto the social media space, there's a huge thriving DIY home sewing community and here on YouTube as well. And there's terms and there's things that you guys have been introduced to that I had never heard of, that hadn't come across for me. Like these standard adjustments, like the full bust adjustment, the tummy adjustment, all those, I had never heard of those until 4 years ago when I started coming on Instagram. I had never heard of pattern hacking until I started coming on Instagram. So I think that it's such a wonderful entry level because it's not scary, right? Like pattern making patterns from scratch, pattern drafting, even draping to a degree, although people are more drawn to draping, is intimidating for a lot of people. But if you talk about pattern hacking, like it's more fun, right? Like that is like, well, I already have a pattern that exists. I'm just going to hack it to do something that I want to do. That's pattern making, my friends. Like if you are hacking a pattern, you are using pattern making skills. And if you know a base knowledge of pattern making, your hacks will be more successful. So I love that as like a gateway, a gateway into this skill. Um, that would be fun. Linda says, yeah, I love it. Sandra says, another idea, class on how to make your own half scale form or a class to pad out your own form. That is a great idea. And I know that Brooks Ann Camper has a class that, you know, she did, she has an ebook as well, because she also taught in the Pattern Place for Us. And then there are a couple of patterns and things that you can purchase out there to make your own half scale form. But yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. And I know when we talked last week, we talked a lot about like tools and having access to fabrics, because pattern making supplies and tools that we use for this craft are not easily available everywhere, especially if you don't live like in LA or New York or London. I'd imagine has resources there, but it's very hard to get, you know, things that I use all the time, can't live without, as far as doing my patterns, like, you know, the Ponce wheel. You can't get this at your local store, I'm trying to, like, there we go. It's so scary. I love it. Like this one, if it's laying on the table and there is a straight man who comes in, just something I've noticed, they will 9 times out of 10 pick this up and go, ooh, this is cool. And like, I don't, because it looks so medieval. Like it's so badass looking. That and the rotary cutter, like they love the rotary cutter. I don't know why. It's just something I've noticed, and I'm not trying to, like, you know, what do you call it? Stereotype. I just, it's something I've noticed. Because, and I think it's just because they look so medieval and like rah. But anyway, like this tool, oh my God, it would make it so much harder to not have this tool. Where do you get this tool? You have to order it online. Where I live, like, I don't think there's anywhere local that I can go pick up this tool. There's fabric stores do not sell this tool. They sell the tracing wheel. You know, there's things like that. So having tools, that's another thing. A dress form, having dress forms, that's very important. Making your dress form, because that is a very important skill. And that is something, that's why I really connected with Brooks Ann Camper and have her come in. Yeah, love this tool. Like, this is like, if I had to pick only 2 tools, it would be this and my see-through ruler. But like, if I was like, okay, I everything else, I got to get by with other stuff, it would be this and my see-through ruler, because they just help life so much. But yeah, it's so important to know how to pad out your dress form, because that is something, you know, for yourself that could be super handy. Like having a dress form, a life-size dress form, more than even a half scale. It's funny. I have this conversation all the time. When people start learning from me, usually we start learning in the half scale because it takes less resources. You're learning these things. If you make a mistake, you're not wasting a bunch of fabric. You're not wasting a bunch of paper. And then I teach, and that's where this is Susie, if you haven't met her yet. She's my muse and who she helps me in my teaching. We've been together for many years now. But everybody wants one. Everybody wants one. And I spend a lot of my time convincing people that they don't need one. But she's so darn cute, and you want to put your clothes on something and see it. But ultimately, I think having a full-size dress form is going to be more beneficial for you, especially if you are sewing for yourself. Most of the time, if you are, something that I always say, if your aspirations are to be a fashion designer or to go into costume design, I have used it for work in that way. then and you're like trying out new designs and like trying to figure out how to create something out of your head that doesn't exist, that's very maybe avant-garde or pushing the envelope. If you are a designer, then having a half scale is very beneficial, I think, because you can test out your design in the half scale to know if it's going to create the vision that you're looking for without, again, using all these materials and fabric and money. But if your goal is to make yourself a wardrobe, to make yourself clothing, even if you are changing up the designs, or if you want to get better at fitting, I highly recommend that you save your money. Like, I know the half scale is cute, and like when you're learning and doing the half scale, you really want to have a half scale so you can see it because she's adorable. Like, I'll get to that in a moment. But if you can save it to have a full size form, that is going to be more helpful to you because you're going to be making full size garments. Because even with the half scale is not going to help you with fitting. I guess that's ultimately what I'm trying to say is a half scale will help you visualize the design if it's turning out, like it will help you with the pattern making side. If you're like for creating design, you're like, I think if I move this here and I do that there and I add about this amount of flair, that it will look the way I want it to look, and you can try it out in half scale. But for fitting, the best way to perfect fitting is to put it on an actual body, put it on an actual person. The second best to that is a form that is the same measurements. So I always say that, and that's something that we use all the time in my costuming business. Is I'm often making costumes and garments for people that I never see. So I have numbers, I have measurements. If I'm lucky, I have pictures. And so using whatever forms I have and getting that form padded out or as close to what I can to fit that person's measurements, then that will be, the best way for me to check and see if something fits. So I really feel like that's a super powerful tool. Absolutely. And then the second, I'll just share this with you, which doesn't have anything to do with dress forms, but even though we have a dress form that is picked for a person, I would say 90% of the time, I want a real person to put it on before we send it off, because the dress form can't tell you if something's pinching weird or they can't move in it, because it's an inanimate object, So I try to find somebody that's kind of close to that measurement and put it on a real human body, even if it isn't going to be perfect, just as a sidebar on that. So padding out your dress form and knowing how to do that, I think, is very valuable, because even if you get a dress form in your size, which I don't know if you guys know about sizing, and I'm not a big fan of that, it doesn't mean that the proportions are exactly to you. We are soft, squishy creatures, and we are all uniquely, wonderfully different. And just like sizing, as I was just saying, dress forms are generic, average sizing. And so they don't fit you perfectly. So being able to take a form and make it fit your body, or better yet, you can check out my friend Carol at Ditto Forms and have a 3D scan of your body, which is so amazing. Like, those products are just beautiful. Like, I always think, I've talked to Carol about this before, like if somebody was working on a star, making costumes for, I don't know, Jennifer Aniston or J-Lo, or somebody that they're not going to have access to all the time. Like, think about if you had a body scan of that person, and they've done this. She has worked on, I forget who it was. I think maybe Farrah Fawcett. That could be wrong. Anyway, having that person's a direct replica of that person, don't you think that would be super handy? And then you could create the costume for that person and have like minimal fit issues, when you got to it. Would just, I think that's an amazing idea. Anyway, so that's another thing. But yeah, I think that that's a great idea. Padding out your dress form or making a half scale, because everybody wants a half scale. I think that would probably be a popular class. The thing with the dress form, the padding out your dress form is you'd have to then bring your dress form, like if you wanted to go home with that, right? So that might be a little bit tricky. But the half scale, so in that case, that would be a little bit easier. But I love this. I love these ideas. This is why I like to get together with y'all. I can't believe we're running out of time. Like, I just love like, thank you for coming and dreaming with me. Can I just say that? Thank you for coming and dreaming with me, helping me to build this into a reality. If you guys are new to me, one thing about me is I don't just talk about stuff. Like, I talk about stuff until it becomes a reality. That's how my world works. And this will be a reality. We will have PatternCon, and I would love it if we make it what you want it to be. So this is exciting for me. Talking about this, coming up with these ideas is just fun. I could do this all day long. So I love it. It makes me so excited. Like, I can see it coming together, like having that open sew room and, having the fitting help and having these big like presentations where we get to go like, oh my God, look at how they did that. It's just, I feel it in my bones. I feel it. And it just makes me so excited. I know that it's coming. It's coming. And who knows how much we can incorporate into the first year, right? But I need to see, that's why I want it to be what you want it to be. Cause like, I need people to show interest. Like, we can't just be doing this and it's me and my 5 friends hanging out doing this. Like, it's gotta be something that we're all really excited about. Yeah, I'm jazzed about it. And this isn't something that I just came up with last week. Like, I have been talking about it and kind of bouncing it off of people's ideas. Like, is this a good idea? Is this just me that I would love to do this? But people light up. People light up about it when I bring it up. Like, people are super excited. At this possibility of this coming. And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me going, that you guys are excited, that you're like, yeah, this sounds awesome. Oh my gosh, when is it? I'm coming, so that keeps me going. And it's really exciting for me. I got a logo. I paid to get a logo for it. And those of you who are going to the retreat, you will get the first enamel pin, because another thing about me is that I love collecting enamel pins. When I travel, that is my souvenir. I have a whole scarf full of pins from everywhere that I have ever traveled, even when I was on tour. And I just think it's so cool to like look back. And so we're gonna have a PatternCon pin. Yeah. Yes, Terry, are you an enamel pin collector too? They're so fun and they're small. Like, patches are great too. I don't know what is going on with my hair. I got it done on Saturday and it needs to be washed. It's a little dirty. Shh, don't tell anybody. But patches are good. Buttons are good, but buttons can be big and bulky, and patches as well. And then you have to like sew them onto something. I like enamel pins because they're small. I mean, they're not always that small. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger, but they're small and there's just something substantial about them. I just think I love it. Yeah, I love enamel pins. Yes. Sandra says it's all about the Dart t-shirts need to finally be a reality. Amen, sister, right? Like, how often have I said that? And we even have had students come up with the design. You're right. There will be a full vendor hall, and I really believe that it's all about the Dart. That I need to finally make t-shirts. I say that all the time. That's my slogan. For sure. For sure. Yes. Okay. I got to write that down. So not that I would forget, but we are making enamel pins for the weekend retreat. So you will get a PatternCon enamel pin if you're going to the retreat. I know a few of you guys are here, like Karen and Sandra and Sue. I don't think we will have the t-shirts together by then, but we will get them for PatternCon, and maybe it'll be like PatternCon in the front, like the logo, and then like the words in the back. I don't know. We'll have to come up with a cool t-shirt design about that, but I agree. And of course, I love all about the Dart, all about. All right. Well, my goodness, time flies when you're having fun, you guys. We are already at an hour. We can keep talking about this for hours and hours. I'm so For those of you, Sue says, I have a special treat for the retreat and maybe used for pet. Oh, Sue, I love gifts and presents. I'm intrigued. And if anybody here is going to the Charlotte Frocktails, I am so, so excited. Is my outfit done? No, it's not. But it is started, officially started yesterday. And I got pretty far. We'll see. I got to get a lot farther today. So if you are going to the Charlotte Frocktails, I am going to meet you there. Please, please, please don't be shy. Please come and introduce yourself. I love people. I am not like one of those who's too cool to meet people. No, I want to give you a big fat hug. That will happen, just so you know. I will hug you immediately because I love meeting people. So I look forward to meeting some people there. If you are going to contact you about shirts, Sue. Okay. Amen. It's all about the dart, about that dart. Yeah. If you're on YouTube, that's my homepage. So and if I don't get to see you at Charlotte Frocktails, maybe I get to see you at Quilt Fest 2 weeks from then for over Halloween. I am going to be in Houston for Halloween, which for everyone, I'm just going to say this real quick, is my absolute favorite holiday. My house is decorated Halloween themed before it's actually decorated for life, just because it's that big of a deal to me. And, so I will be in Houston on Halloween. I'm not teaching on that day. So I will be looking for Halloween festivities. I think it's a Thursday. So I'm super stoked about that. If you're going to Quilt Fest, please, please, please hit me up. Let's hug. Let's meet in person. And if not, I hope that you are planning to come to PatternCon. And right now I'm loosely thinking mid to early August 2025. So I need to start making things happen. And don't you worry, it is top of my list as soon as I get back from Quilt Fest. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I always have so much fun with these. And next week we'll be on Charlotta's channel for Tricky Thursday Live. We'll be talking about some exciting things over there. And stay tuned for next month where I will start having guests. We'll do like once or twice a month where we will continue this PatternCon chat and be bringing on some people who want to be involved in it so that we can make sure that we are staying online. And we will keep this going until it actually happens. So I'm super excited. You're excited. And I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.